baseball fan. If you just like history, come on, guys, you're in the right place. This is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Of course, if you've never joined me before, what I do is I give you a historic fact about an African-American baseball player, but it might not just be baseball. Could be playing football, could be playing basketball, could be playing hockey, could be boxing, could be a whole bunch of different things, but they all have some tie to baseball history. And so I'm going to talk about that. And today is the November 6, 2025 edition. I've got lots of stuff here, guys. So usually I wait about 1 minute, minute and a half before I let some people in, before people even join me. They just kind of pick it up. But I'm going to just jump right in here now because I like to get out in about 20 minutes. And I've got so much material. And who knows what I'm going to say when I start giving my commentary after I give you the facts. So, all right. So let's go to the first one. How about November the 6th, 1904? A late season crowd of 2,500 people showed up on a Sunday afternoon to Brooklyn's Visitation Field as Pop Watkins Negro Stars lost to the white All-Americans in a 12-7 final. Joe Wall, man, this guy was a pretty good semi-professional baseball player around here. Matter of fact, they called him the Lajoie of the East. He picked up 4 hits for the winner. And pitcher George Warwick. If you look on some of the channels, they have him as William Warwick. I always call him George because I think that's what his real name was. Okay, so William George Warwick, formerly of the Brooklyn Royal Giants, the Philadelphia Giants, and Cuban ex-Giants, took his lumps in a 17-hit bombardment. All right, so they went down in defeat with Warwick on the mound. What can I tell you about this? Okay, Pop Watkins All-Stars. We got to talk a little bit more about Pop Watkins. Pop Watkins was what they call a coacher at that time, a coacher. So these guys would coach from the third baseline. A lot of people don't know this. The first and the third base coaches were something that originated out of Negro League baseball because that's where they would put their funny men if you weren't in the game. The one that was in the game that brought the most humor was a guy by the name of Bill Monroe. And occasions, they would have a contest to see who could get the most laughs, either Pop Watkins or Bill Monroe. Both of them were good. But Bill Monroe was a outstanding baseball player, one of the all-time greats. And I'm going to make a good push to get him in the Hall of Fame. I'm just trying to put all his numbers out. But yeah, and I always tell people, I grew up hearing about Pie Traynor. Man, I'll tell you what, Pie Traynor couldn't carry Bill Monroe's spikes, and that's saying a lot. Just imagine Bill Monroe died from tuberculosis and is buried in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had someone recently go down to Chattanooga and take a picture of his gravesite, so I might share that maybe on today's post when I go to Facebook, or the next time I show 2 or 3 pictures from Bill Monroe. All right, then. Let's go to November the 6th, 1910. Rube Foster's Chicago Leland Giants in Cuba beat the Havana Stars in an 11-7 final in Havana. Frank Wickware, who topped 40 wins in 1910, along with catcher Bruce Petway, formed the winning battery. Members of the American League Tigers, who they were going to play next, were in the grandstands watching the game. Of course, probably one of the things that has come down through history was the game that Ty Cobb played, and Bruce Petway threw him out 3 or 4 times in the same game. And Ty Cobb said, "I'll never play against these black guys again." He probably didn't say it that way, but as far as we know, he never did. Now, I know there's been a great push to change the image of Ty Cobb, but I will address that someday and go from there, all right? There's lots of things to talk about. So, but Frank Wickware, just imagine you're sitting there looking at Frank Wickware, who Walter Johnson called so. So just imagine the Detroit Tigers are sitting there waiting their chance, looking at the Leland Giants, who had only lost 6 games in the regular season in 1910. I have an entire book about that, so you might want to get that. It was considered what do we call it? It won an Illinois Best Book Award for 2023. So It's not something that just a book. It's an award-winning book. All right, so let's go. Keep it going. November the 6th, 1910. It's the same time, but we're back in America. And the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, a pitcher Andrew Skinner and Bad Eye Jackson in an exhibition game played against Johnny Kling's All-Stars, played to a 1-1 tie at Stevens Park in Kansas City, Missouri. Harmon, I'm not sure who his first name was, that was Kling's pitcher. He struck out 25 of the Giants, but could not get the win. Just imagine that. You struck out 25 guys and you still ended a tied game. All right, so the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, they must have had a unique strategy that day. However, not only did he not get the win, he had Zach Wheat and Casey Stengel in the lineup playing with him, and Johnny Kling. Those are three guys of prominence. Actually, Zach Wheat is a Hall of Famer. I will tell you a little bit about Zach Wheat. So that game's pretty an exciting game. I'd like to know more about it. I'm going to dig and see if I can find more. But Zach Wheat is buried in the same cemetery with two other Hall of Famers. And that would be Buck O'Neill is buried in that same cemetery, and Satchel Paige is buried in that same cemetery. That's Highland Cemeteries, right off of Troost in Kansas City, about 70-something in Troost, right before you get to Gregory. I go out there all the time, and I've decorated those graves. And, you know, my favorite Hall of Famer is buried in that cemetery, and that's my dad, Arthur Dixon. He's buried in the same cemetery with those guys. And if you're a big musical fan, maybe you've heard of Johnny Taylor. Yeah, Johnny Taylor has a mausoleum in that same cemetery, Highland Cemetery. No. Did I say Highland Cemetery? I don't know if I meant to say Highland Cemetery. Maybe I might be drawing a blank on that one, but it is definitely in Kansas City, and so they're all buried in the same place. I'm saying Highland, but I'm thinking it's something else. It is Forest Lawn Cemetery. That's what it is. But they're all buried there. All right. So let's go to another one. God always, you know, when you're laying down history, and a lot of these guys will go and check my information, and I appreciate that. Also, yesterday, I couldn't think of a guy's name who died in Denver. It was Oliver Marcel. Somebody sent me a thing last night. Of course, the minute I got off the broadcast, I remembered it. And I was just struggling. There was two names yesterday. Marcel was one of them. I never did think of his. And the other one was Elwood Parsons, who was like a promoter who operated the Dayton Metropolitans, who suited up Sweetwater Clifton back in 47. All right, let's go to another one. How about this one? Boy, we keep them with the Hall of Famers. You just had Zach Wheat. We had Ruth Foster. And let's see. Let's go to another one. November 6, 1913, Chief Bender of the Philadelphia Athletics tossed 4 innings, a 4-hit ball at Olympic Field, that's once again in New York, in a game against the Leland Giants, and ended up on the losing end of a 2-1 Giants victory. Now, opposing him that day starter was Joe Williams, who tossed all 9 innings and allowed just 3 hits. So you got Joe Williams allowing 3 hits, Chief Bender allowing 4 hits in 4 innings to some guys that no one told us about. No one brought their names through history, but we're doing that now. So anyway, that is Chief Bender. You probably heard of him, that famous Benders, Combs, and Planks team pitchers for the Philadelphia Athletics. That was Connie's team. So anyway, I just want to tell you about those guys. That was Connie Mack, just in case you're not a baseball fan. Cornelius McGillicuddy. Man, I'll tell you what, boy, I used to read these books and learn these names and everything. It's just amazing what I've learned over the years and still able to recall. And I tell people, and I'm proud of it, I've been doing and conducting research on African-American baseball and baseball history in general. For over 40 some odd years, I started out collecting baseball cards as a kid, and that's where I learned of many of the names of the white major leaguers, but not these Negro leaguers. So it's been my pleasure to introduce you to many of them. All right, let's keep it going. One of my favorite players died on this date. and I need to mention this too. And this is part of my coming and going. And his name is George Lefty Wilson, famous pitcher for the Adrian, Michigan-based Paige Giants, and died in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And that was November 6, 1915. Boy, I tell you what, I've done a lot to promote Wilson. In I think maybe 93, I featured him on a card for the Ted Williams Baseball Card Company. They allowed me to pick the players I wanted to talk about, and George Wilson was one of them. Somewhere in my house, I have some wood, actually from the front porch of George Wilson. I was talking to a guy who lived in Palmyra, where Wilson lived, and they were tearing down his house, his parents' house, where George lived as well. And so I asked him, can you send me some wood from that house? And he sent that to me, and there's nice little pieces. And I'm thinking about making that into a frame and putting George Wilson's picture. I have a beautiful picture of George Wilson that appears in my book. Let's see, it was, which one is Ruth Foster, and A Harvest on Freedom's Fields. Man, I tell you, boy, I'm starting thinking about how these book names that I have to make sure I call them right, because you might want to order that book. So anyway, that's George Lefty Wilson, one of the outstanding strikeout pitchers. I rate him as one of the greatest left-handed pitchers of the early 20th century. And so he would be up there with the best in the major leagues, and certainly the best in the Negro Leagues. And in the Negro Leagues, you're talking about Pat Doherty, Dan McClellan, and of course, we can't forget Chief Bender. Well, no, not Chief Bender. We want to talk about Lefty Wilson. We don't want to forget Lefty Wilson. We won't forget Chief Bender because he's in the Hall of Fame. So, all right, then, let's keep it going here. I'll give you another one. This is November the 6th, 1932. Satchel Paige lifts 9 batters in the Los Angeles Royals Giants 9-1 victory over El Paso at White Sox Park in California Winter League action. Jake Dunn, the second baseman for the Royal Giants, homered off of Archibald Archie Campbell, a former star hurler for the Yankees, Senators, and Cincinnati in the National League. And that added to the festivities. So that's quite a game there. Jake Dunn is someone we need to talk about. Guys, I will say this every night. There's always people that we need to talk about that we're not talking about. And this is the fun part of doing these broadcasts, because I get to introduce names that you should know. And for no particular reason, people just don't talk about these guys. And if you remember, I was a part of this when we merged the statistics. They talked about they were going to put 1,200 people or new names. I think they said 12,000. They had some incredible total. But besides the guys that are in the Hall of Fame and a few others, they don't talk about the majority of the people who are in those statistics. And so it's my honor to be able to do that. So to talk about a person like Satchel Paige is pretty obvious. Jake Dunn is somebody you won't hear much about. But if you listen to these broadcasts, guys, I'm going to keep talking about all these guys and all of these players that deserve your attention. And be sure, go back, guys. If you hear an interesting name, look it up. Look it up. Don't take my word, and don't take my my passion about these guys. Go and look it up for yourself. And I always say, when I'm doing baseball history, if somebody drops a name to me that I've never heard of, or a feat that I've never heard of, I go look it up. And it's getting easy to look up some of these things, but some of them are there's just not palatable to just go out and get it off of research. You can't do it yet. Hopefully in the years to come that can change, all right? We'll get a couple more, and then we're going to jump out of here. So that was my going for today, somebody who passed away on this date. And then we're going to go to this one, November 6, 1965. Houston Astros second baseman Joe Morgan is named the Sporting News Rookie of the Year. In his rookie season, Morgan topped 157 games, batted 601 times. Can you imagine a rookie coming in batting 601 times and picked up 163 hits? This guy just floated into the Hall of Fame. Outstanding player. Got a chance to shake his hand as well. And that's Joe Morgan. I remember when Buck O'Neil passed away, Joe Morgan came and pretty much gave a eulogy of Buck O'Neil. Did an outstanding job. So that's Joe Morgan. You know about him from the Cincinnati Big Red Machine. Guys, I grew up with those guys. They had a wonderful team, and several guys from that team, including Morgan and George Foster and Johnny Bench. Who else we got? Who else? Tony Perez. Those guys are Pete Rose. They're all in the Hall of Fame. So a really good team. Just want to just touch on that for a second. We got one more that we're going to do, one more historic fact, and I want to close with that. I do want to thank everybody for supporting me and coming on and picking up my broadcast. Guys, I know there's so many things out there, so many places you could go, so many things happening in the world that you could be listening to. Or so I'm just happy that you chose to come and listen to me for a while as I talk about baseball history. What I plan to do, guys, is just keep on talking about it. You know, I turn on ESPN, I listen, but I'll tell you what, we're getting some pretty interesting baseball right here that they're not even talking about. They need to invite me on one of those shows one of these days. I saw Harold Reynolds down in Birmingham and said, Harold, when you going to get a real baseball guy, somebody who's lived a life, talking about the Negro Leagues on your show? And of course, he's never had me on the show. So I'm going to go after Harold again. Say, Harold, you need to get me on this winter. Let's pick a topic. Let's talk about it and go from there. All right. So here we go. Last one for today. People. Let's see. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name. Sushant. Okay. I'm not sure you pronounce that. It says hello. And somebody says, how are you doing? I appreciate that. And then there's a Sarah. Oh, man, these names are getting me here. Audieri. Somebody knows how to pronounce that. She says hello, and I say hello to you. And somebody said, somebody's saying, Unc, when you going to give me back that $20 I lent you last week? Okay, I don't remember borrowing $20 from anybody last week. So we'll have to see who that is. So, all right, maybe somebody that wants to be my nephew. Who about that? Maybe I need to give you $20 to be my nephew. Who knows? All right, guys, we just have a little fun here all the time. So here we go. We're going to go to the last one, and this is November 6, 1971. And it sounds like a lot of you were probably born during 1971 were probably listening to me today, because I look, and my audience, sometimes Cume's kind of old. So most of you guys were born in 71. So we say 1,100 fans watched as Jackie Robinson's All-Stars. Actually, you know what? This couldn't be 71. This would have to be November 6, 1951. I would go with 51, not 71. Don't know how that happened. Boy, but see, when you know your dates and everything, you can get those straightened out real quick. So I have November 1951. 1,100 fans watched as the Jackie Robinson All-Stars, without Jackie Robinson in the lineup, lost a 7-6 game to the Indianapolis Clowns at Kelly Field in Daytona Beach, Florida. Roy Campanella caught the game for the All-Stars, who had Larry Doby in right field. And Jim Torgerson, a 6'4" World War II veteran, received the win for the Clowns. And so, man, they had two brothers, Elander and Vic Torgerson, that were actually pretty good players. And either one never made it to the American National League, but they were bona fide stars all throughout the minor leagues. And so, how much do you know about the Indianapolis Clowns? That's what I want to know. The Indianapolis Clowns playing in Daytona Beach. I would say this. Let's talk about some of the Indianapolis Clowns great players. I just pulled up a little list here, and I think you might find this interesting, because some of these guys, I actually saw a couple of them play. Meaning I saw Paul Casanova. He was with the Washington Senators. He played with the Clowns in 60-61. Also, I saw John Wyatt. He was with Boston Red Sox right at the end of his career. I saw him pitch in Kansas City Municipal Stadium, and he had an awful night. And I know he came on in relief, but he wasn't very good that night. That'd be about 1968. I think it might have been like 69, maybe, somewhere in there, that I saw him pitch for the Red Sox against the Kansas City Royals. So I know it had to be at least 69, because that was the year they started. Of course, they had Chuck Harmon. Chuck Harmon made it up to Cincinnati, played with the Clowns in 47. They had Hal King. He was still around in Atlanta. Saw him on TV, never saw him in person. He was mostly a utility guy, but he played with the Clowns in 1962 and 64. Of course, Dave Hoskins, who ended up being a great pitcher over in the Texas League. Actually won 20 games in the Texas League one year. And so Dave Hoskins, he played for the Clowns in 42. Of course, you probably remember Sam Hairston. Sam Hairston played for the Clowns. You might remember Hairston, his sons. I used to talk to his son Jerry all the time when I worked as assistant director of public relations for the Royals. I would talk to Jerry. He was a pinch hitter with the White Sox, and I remember him telling me that his brother had a son that was coming along. He's going to be better than all of them. And so, yeah, there ended up being two more Hairston brothers that came after the son of Sam. So, man, let me change the son of Sam. That doesn't sound right, does it? All right. Okay. You know why. Somebody who knows about the criminal world. So anyway, but Sam Hairston and his sons, he had two sons, of course, and then they had two more Hairstons to play. Yeah. So that is part of that. And of course, their greatest player that you probably heard of, a guy by the name of Hammerin' Hank Aaron. Had a chance to shake his hand, talk to him before. So actually, I think that's the only one I actually talked to was Hank Aaron. But hey, if I had to talk to one person on that list, I would love for it to have been Hank Aaron, and it was Hank Aaron. And so he was in Kansas City Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and he came down and he signed something for my son who was away at Fisk University at that time. So yeah, this is great stuff, guys. And I'm promising that I might come on again tonight because I wanted to spend a little more time on Sweetwater Clifton. I was going through some notes, and of course, he played his first NBA game, the first African-American in the NBA, which was on yesterday. And that would have been on the 5th of November, and that was in 1950. And I had an interview that I did with him, and actually I typed it out. And so I just wanted to share a few things with you guys. And so hopefully I'll come back on. I might spend a little more time talking about Sweetwater Clifton this week and his major achievement of breaking the color barrier in the NBA. Not enough talk about him. And so I want to thank everyone for joining. Today I'm wearing my Pete Hill jacket. I'm a member of the Pete Hill Foundation, and they're going to have a street dedicated in his honor coming up real soon. So guys, if you want to search online for that, you'll find that really interesting. Got some great things going on. Ron Hill keeps me informed. So I just want to thank everybody. And so I'm about 23 minutes. I'm about 3 minutes past with my time I like to share with you guys, because I understand, hey, it's hard to come on these broadcasts and stay as long as people stay. But if you stay 1 minute with me today, 2 minutes, hopefully you learn something and you'll be able to share some of this information with someone else. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you tonight if I can work it out. All right, so thank you, guys, and you have a nice day.